are this infinite ocean of consciousness in action, and the activity of your consciousness is the activity that is going on here. Well, what in the world can keep it out of this here? Nothing. Nothing can force it into this. Nothing can keep it out. Nothing holds it either. But it's this. And here's the power of it. You see, it's this infinite activity. You see. So we don't need to be concerned about the activity of this body. It goes on. It goes on. The activity of the body, which is an aspect of every identity, is constantly in action. But the activity of the body is the infinite activity of the whole, complete, infinite identity that you are. Is it clear? Now, what has the infinite but specific identity to do with the supposedly finite, limited, temporary, born identity? Nothing at all. What has the infinite, eternal, constant body to do with the temporary, supposed, created, or born body? Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Actually, the infinite, conscious, eternal identity has no awareness of a supposedly born identity, any more than the sun has any awareness of the clouds that seem to conceal it. You see? Because you're infinity, because you are infinite. The only body you can possibly be aware of or as is the infinity that you are, focalized as this body. That's the only body that you can know anything about. You see. Now, I'm not talking about having a body. Someone said one day, she said, I'm so tired of this body anyway, I just soon trade it in on a new model. But I guess I can understand that. But the funny thing is, we don't really have to become invisible. There somehow we have to make a start on this thing of the eternal body showing through here, because either that or the Bible lies when it says the last enemy, is death, and we've got to see through it sometime, So we have to make a start on this, and surely there's going to come a day, I can't see any other way, there's going to come a day when these bodies that seem to get old and troublesome and deteriorate and that kind of thing, that they just won't do this anymore, and that they, even though, now, I've got to tell you something. You know something? Oh dear. This is why. We look at a child that we are a young person, so-called, we imagine we have created. We look at that body, and we could say, I brought that body into the world. I said it in my own so-called honor. I brought that body into the world. Like fun I did. Now, look here. This body that you see, when you see this child or whatever that you imagine you created, This body that you see has been, well, I'll say renewed, it's the wrong word, but it has been renewed literally millions of times. And this body that you see is no more the body that you supposedly brought into the world than the sun is the moon. You see? Because it's an entirely new body. Well, look, since we've been sitting in this chair, in these chairs here, goodness sake, because the activity of this universal activity is so fast, so powerful, that we're always new, always new. We'll call it, I don't like the word renewed, because it isn't like that, really. But I don't want to go too far up here, because there is a point that explains something that I've never seen before until just a minute ago. But this activity is so great and so powerful, you see, that but it's all new. It's because the whole ocean of living light is always new, and then it's as though it reaches this body, circulates, and that there's always, it's like a river or an ocean. It's always new water, it's always new life, it's always new substance, it's always new consciousness. Oh my goodness, how many times is this whole infinite ocean, well, you say it passed through, but it isn't. It's the whole shebang of this body, you see. Well, then how many times have you been renewed since we sat down here? Every one of us, no matter how it might appear. Do you see this clearly? All right. Then this child that we look at and say, I brought this body into the world, that isn't the body we seem to bring into the world at all. Not at all. Oh, and this is the point I wanted to make. This is why it should be possible for us, I'm so grateful this came. It should be possible for us, knowing that regardless of the fact that we seem to have come into this world as a born body, that regardless of this fact, that this body, because it's always new as the infinite ocean renewing itself here, that this body should be able to live forever and stay visible. Can you see it? Well, why not? For heaven's sake. Why not? I have to say it. Now, I don't believe that there's going to be much more said here this morning. I really don't. I think this should be considered here, because it's the greatest thing that I have seen. Because I have there has seemed up until this morning to be a gap between this thing that seemed to be a born body that seemed to mature and that kind of thing, and my absolute conviction that the eternal body is a body that is going to be revealed visibly, and I can see now why. Can you? Now, would you like to go on much farther? Would you like to just let me see what's here. I don't know what's going to take place here, but it's wonderful, whatever it is. Now, what has this eternal body of the eternal identity to do with the temporary, finite, supposedly born or created body? Nothing at all. Now you can see. Can't you? You know, I didn't even know that when I wrote that. I didn't know why. I knew it, yes, but I didn't know why. What this, beloved one, is what our so-called young people should know. This is what they should know. This is what our boys should know, even though they may seem to have to be dragged into the war. You see? This is what they should know. This is what they should know, even though they may seem to have done things that have affected their bodies, that kind of thing. Now let us perceive just what this eternal identity means where the I am that we are is concerned. Now this body right here is complete, always complete. It consists of the complete entire infinitude, which is the infinite yet specific body. It's a specific body, believe me. It is said that every cell of the supposedly born body contains all the elements of the entire body. Did you know that? That's what the physicists say. And that one cell alone could create an entirely new body. That's the scientific fact, according to the physicists. One cell alone could create an entirely new body. Now this, of course, is a misconception of the absolute fact, but it's an imitation of the truth. Taken misconception of the possibility of one cell creating a whole new body stems from the illusion that everything has to be created in order to be or to exist. You see, that's why, because the physicists would interpret it in that way, because to them, the cell, everything has to be created, so the cell would have to create a whole body. That's why they feel that way. But there is, behind this, there is some truth. There is an important truth beyond this misconception, and this truth has to do with the eternal, uncreated body. That's the thing. This eternal, uncreated body right here, consisting of eternal, infinite substance and activity, is the infinite, eternal body that you are, that everyone is. Now I'll tell you another thing that's just come through. We talked about the uncreated body, now this body that we see, and now we know, is not the body we imagined we gave birth to or we created. Now this body that we see is the uncreated body. You see that? All right. So this is important. Now, as I said before, you look at this youngster, you say, well, I created that, or I brought that body into the world. But that body is not at all the body that you are supposed to have brought into the world. Now, we've been talking about the uncreated body. But that body that you see standing before you is the uncreated body. The uncreated body. And if we had known this, there is not a one of us that would have needed to change or to age. Because there isn't a body in this room that is a created body. Every one of them. Because, well, it's true, but it's pretty shocking to think about, to realize, but it is true that as I must go back to this thing now, because it has to be clear. It sounds so silly that it won't bear repeating at all. But as I said, you look at these bodies that you imagine that you gave birth to, or you created, and yet, if you go back now and see how many times this body has been all new, all new, all new, all new, then you see this is not the body that was supposedly born at all. Is this clear so far? Am I going too far? I can't hold back. I don't agree with holding back. I don't think it's fair. I think it limits you if I hold back. I won't hold back. All right. Then, so long as we don't hold anything back, anything that is not clear, please, let's clarify it. Let's see that it is clear. That's why it's here, you see. We're not afraid to go as far, no matter how far we have to go. We're not afraid. Why should we be afraid? What's to fear? So, now, then, everybody in this room is supposed to have originally been a born body, isn't it? Isn't that so? All right? Now, there isn't a body in this room that is the same body that was born. Clear so far? Why? Because this whole universal, infinite living consciousness that is life itself has, well, all right, we'll say recreated. If you see what I mean? You see? Then this is not a born body at all. That's why. Yes, there does seem to be a born baby body. We'll say that because it's the truth. That's the way it seems. But for heaven's sake, it doesn't stay a born body. You see this? Now we're getting somewhere. Is it? I hope this is clear to everyone. Well, my dear, it's because, go back to the thing we discussed, this thing, because God is supposed to be a creator, and man has to imitate God, and he has to create. That's the whole illusion, you see, and the only thing, you see, our own Bible and the churches and so forth foster that very thing, you see, making God into a creator, and thus encouraging man that he must create, you see. Man is not to blame. There's no doubt. That's the thing. But do you imagine for a moment that I could say these things unless they came through with such conviction that I could not keep quiet? I couldn't say these things. It would be terrible to say these things, you know. But the conviction is too great. This truth is too important for each and every one of us. I beg your pardon, I'm not hearing you. Yes, the same thing. Yes, you're right. That's right. And throughout all of these centuries, you see, there's been this thing that a man, God made man his own image and likeness, and then someone said to me one time, the Bible, some good church member, some Orthodox church, I don't remember, but she said, the Bible says to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And I said, you mean replenish the church, don't you? but sorry. Yes. Well, you see, that's the way it appears. That's the way it has appeared right straight through all of these centuries. That there was a baby born body. Yes, that's right. Well, no, actually, yes, you're right. You're right about that. Yep, there it is. Now let's see, where are we? This is just so big that it's just kind of thrown me. You know, it's a beautiful thing about tremendous. Now this eternal uncreated body right here, consisting of eternal infinite substance and activity, is the infinite eternal body that you are, that I am, you see. It consists of all that you are. Just imagine. And you are infinity. This body really consists. It's focalized. Keeps focalizing here. It's a whole infinite identity that you are, because it's no different. It's no different than the infinite consciousness, the very infinite consciousness that you exist. It's the same thing, identically the same thing. You see, it exists as the infinite, eternal, omnipresent, ever-present, omni-active, ever-active, perfect, constant, immutable consciousness of being that you are. Now that's a pretty big thing, but it does consist of your infinite consciousness that you exist.
And that includes this body of green stone that leads you to see?
Everything. Everything. Yes? Oh, now I think after this maybe we'd better write the questions, but I'm glad you asked that question. I'm not rebuking you, my dear. You see, it's never really changed because the universe doesn't change, you see. Because the substance that is infinity does not change, but it's always new, you see. It's like the whole ocean. It's like the eddy we have. I hope all of you have that first volume of 1966 Pascal, in which there's that chapter that speaks of the infinite, boundless infinite ocean of living light. You have that. Well, the basis of this is that chapter, that book, that so-called class book, you see. But now this that we're talking about now, it's because the ocean is always new, you see what I mean. The water of the ocean, as you might say, or the water of the river in which the eddy is always new water. It simply reaches the eddy, circulates, you see, and yet it's always new water reaching the eddy, but always the water goes on. So it's not changed water. So it's always new, but it's not changed. Does that clarify it for you? Now, oh boy, you're going to keep me busy. I can see that. And I love it. And I love it. Now, this eternal uncreated body right here, consisting of eternal infinite substance. Now, this infinite substance, I wish you'd go back and read that book again. Will you, those of you who have it now? After this revelation, go back and read it again. Please, well, do as you please. Well, I hope you do. Well, who am I to tell you what to do? It's the first volume of the 1966 class notes. And the article in there that brings out the thing that has brought forth this whole thing, this tremendous revelation we've all had here. Because if it hadn't been your revelation, it wouldn't have come through. It's your revelation. Don't you make any mistake about that. So, but that the article in there that brings this out so clearly is a chapter, and I don't remember, toward the end of the book someplace. I know it came through on a Thursday morning, anyway. Well, anyhow. Now this body exists as the infinite, eternal, omnipresent, omniactive, perfect, constant, immutable, changeless. Now that's the point we were discussing. Changeless, because the infinite ocean of living light does not change, you see. Because God does not change. Because consciousness does not change. But it's always new, you see. Immutable consciousness of being that you are. Well, this is what you are, how great you are, how wonderful you are. No wonder Jesus says in the Gospel according to Thomas, but I wonder, I marvel at how such great splendor could exist in such poverty. You remember that? Jesus in the Gospel according to Thomas. But I marvel at how such great splendor could exist in such great poverty. Imagine that. It exists as the infinite, eternal, omnipresent, omniactive, perfect, constant, immutable consciousness of being that you are. Now, how big are you? See? Now, what has an insignificant, temporary, isolated, confined, supposedly born body, and I mean supposedly now, supposedly born body to do with the infinite yet specific eternal body that you are? Nothing. Nothing at all. Now, just as it is true that the supposedly born body knows nothing of the genuine and only eternal body, so it is that the infinite eternal body knows nothing of a suppositional temporary body. Do you know something I just realized? That this infinite body that you really are doesn't know a thing about your supposedly having a baby born body. How could it? Isn't it wonderful? Say, you know, you're just wonderful what you're bringing through here. Truly, a supposedly born body can make no demands upon the eternal, uncreated, infinite, yet specific body that you are. It would be like a drop of water in the ocean, making demands upon the ocean, wouldn't it? Just as ridiculous. Now, the misconception called a born body cannot experience anything, nor can it experience even being anything.
I hope you enjoy this spiritual audio. Like, share and subscribe for more.